Okay, guys, thanks for joining us. Today we're here with Bill O'Donnell. He is an icon in the harness racing industry, and I'm proud to call him a friend of mine. Of course, we've bumped into each other a few times over the years. Yeah. And so Bill is the president of the Central Ontario Standardbred Association. He has got a lifetime wins of 5,742. He's won the trotting Triple Crown, pacing Triple Crown. He's been driver of the year. He's had the moniker the Magic Man for quite some time now. And we're here to talk to Bill, and he can tell us all about his story. So, Bill, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Tyler. It's good to be here.
Good. So, Bill, I just wanted to start from the beginning. Okay, so tell us where you're from, where you were raised, and how you got into the industry.
I'm from Spring Hill, Nova Scotia, and everybody knows that for two reasons: Anne Murray and the Spring Hill mine disasters, my dad was working the coal mine there.
Yeah.
And he trained horses full time till he got married, and he couldn't really make a living doing that back in those days. So he did it part time. So I was just brought up around. I was born into it basically, and used to help him when I was young. And then my uncle, he had a stable horses and trained horses full time. I went to work for him in the summers. Yeah. In Sackville, Nova Scotia, at Sackville Downs, and then I just kind of fell in love with it, I guess, right? The horses and stuff.
So for your dad, coal miner, but then it's more of a hobby for him, was it?
The racing was, yeah. But he stayed at it, yeah.
Yeah, and then, but when you say there's no money to be made, no purses, or just not a lot of people into it in that point in time?
It was kind of a little bit almost dying, because back in the 30s and 40s, early 40s, before the war, I think they had a lot of racetracks in Nova Scotia. But then it kind of shrunk and got smaller and smaller. Now there's only 3 now, right? Yeah. There was like 25 or 30 at one time.
Wow.
So that's what he did. And then, he worked in the coal mine, but always trained a couple horses on the side and stayed at it that way.
Did he have any success with those horses?
He had, back in, we're going to say 1949, 50, he had a trotting mare that she was leading dash winner in North America 2 years in a row.
What was her name?
Jenny Kalyamuk. My sister's got a big picture of my dad on the wall there that he left her when he passed away.
So I guess at that time, if there's not a lot of money there, it has to be a passion project, right? Like for you, you're like what was that thought process? You're getting into an industry where there wasn't a lot of money to be made, or did you kind of think,
no,
screw it, we're going to do it anyway?
Yeah, I think that I never gave it much thought. At one point, I applied to go to trade school to be an electrician. Mm-hmm. So about that time, I was around 20 maybe. I'd been out of school a few years, and I was working with the horses. But I was lucky enough to work for people that had a lot of money that could pay you to train their horses, and it wasn't about the money for them. Yeah. So then I had an opportunity to go to the United States when I was 21 to work for Jim Doherty, who worked for a guy from New Brunswick called Milton Downey. He had a big car dealership and had a lot of horses too. So I did that. I went down there and went to work for Jimmy. And then I was there a couple of years, and I was offered a job to train for Mrs. Gray, and I worked for her for 6 years. And I used to train her horses and drove them. Yeah. And then pretty soon I had everybody fooled. They thought I could drive, so they were hiring me to drive their horses.
So you started training the horses.
Yeah.
Okay, and then so from Spring Hill, yeah. A population of what?
Back here, Spring Hill at the time before the 2 mine disasters was around 5,500 people. Today, it's probably 3,500.
Oh, so it's gone down.
One of the few times, yeah. But the coal mines were the big industries there, right? So when they both closed after there was multiple deaths, like 100 men, and then they brought in the prison. It was a prison farm, they called it. Probably they call it halfway house now, right? Yeah. So people that were getting out of federal prison would come there and spend their last, I don't know, I think you could spend a day, less than 2 years maybe there. But it was kind of a trickle down where you're getting out back in the
that kind of
population.
transform that area a little rougher? Or?
Yeah, well, I don't know. We were gone by then. Like my dad worked in number 4 mine when it exploded, and all his people that he worked with, I mean, they got killed. So he got transferred. He had a choice of 5 different places. I remember Pittsburgh, Sydney Mines, Timmins. There was 4 or 5 of them anyway, but he chose Cape Breton because he knew the people down there. And it was Nova Scotia still. So we moved there when I was in the grade 5.
Okay.
Stayed there until I got to school, and they stayed. My mom and dad and my younger sister and my older sister, or my sister next to me. She still lives there, just 3 miles from where we lived. And
your dad was there until he passed?
No, he was there until the coal mine closed.
Yeah.
So then he went back with the horses. So he
and started training.
Yeah, and did pretty good too. And then
did you train with him like professionally?
No. No, he was too early in the morning for me. I wasn't a real morning guy. He was a 5 o'clock in the morning guy. But and I, when I used to go, like when I was going to school in Sydney Mines, his horses were in North Sydney. So I would go after school, get on a bus and go finish up whatever he had to do there, and kind of help him out, and help him on Saturdays and stuff. So a little bit, yeah. And then as soon as school got out, I was gone. I went to Halifax.
So what was it like? What was that like growing up there in the smaller community? So you're in Spring Hill, and then you're in
Sydney Mines.
Sydney Mines, yeah. Like, I mean, what was that like back then?
It would be like right here in Rockwood, I think. I mean, small. You knew everybody, and you were just part of a big family, basically, right? And but we were known as horse people, I guess. Where everybody had their own identification, I guess. So.
Yeah.
But there's still people I see on Facebook and say, "Oh, there was a guy from here that got real famous." So. Meaning me, that I went away and started driving horses, but they don't know me.
No.
They just one girl go, "Oh, I went to school with him. I forget his name."
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, growing up there was a relatively good childhood.
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it was. No, it wasn't. Back in those days, it wasn't like the big enough city where there was the very rich and the very poor. Everybody was kind of like just blue collar people, right? They worked hard and families. They were close families and.
Okay.
Got drunk on Friday night and Saturday night. Went to work on Monday.
So then from there, you went to Halifax.
Yeah.
And what'd you do there?
Worked for my uncle.
Okay.
And then
on a standardbred farm. Okay.
At the racetrack.
At the track. Okay.
At the track. So when I got to school, the last year I was in school, he just asked me. My uncle said, "What are you going to do now that you got another year of school?"
Yeah.
I said, "I'd like to stay with the horses, I think." He said, "Well, if that's the case, go away somewhere where you can learn from somebody like up here in Ontario." So he called a friend of his, and I come up here.
So why would he say that?
Just more experience, maybe, I guess. Yeah. Just to see how the rest of the world lives, maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
But he had done it. He was pretty good at what he did. His name was Art Porter. And
Art Porter?
Art, yeah. And anyway, I came up here and I went to work for Ronnie Fagan. And then I stayed for the summer and went back home and finished school. And then the next year I went to come back up here again, went to work for Bill Wellwood. And both of those guys are Hall of Famers too. You don't know that at the time when you're working for them, but it was a great experience working for both those guys. And I just kind of took that and went back home, and then I guess he was right.
Yeah.
Go away and see.
So then from there, and then you went to the U.S. And worked under Doherty.
Yeah. And there was another Hall of Famer.
So so what was it like? So where was that?
It was in Salem, New Hampshire, Rockingham Park. It was called.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gone now, but all those places are
And
gone.
then what was he like? Is he still alive?
No, he passed away a few years ago. He called him Gentleman Jim. He wasn't always a gentleman, especially on the racetrack when you raced against him, but great guy, very good guy. He was a friend of mine really pushed me more than I would have done myself.
Okay. And then you trained horses and he drove them.
I worked for him. I groomed them, trained them, did whatever he had to do, right?
But at that point, you weren't a driver.
I had my license, but I never wanted to drive. He would want me to drive horses, and I go, I don't want to get so-and-so to do it, and I didn't want to do it.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
No confidence, I don't think, at the time, right?
Yeah.
Because you were dealing with, some real top guys, right, around New England.
Yeah. So then, so how would you get paid then? Like, how does that work? You train the horse.
Now?
Yeah.
If I trained a horse?
Well, back then.
Back then, well, I worked for a wage for him, right?
Okay.
That's what I did. But then when I went on my own, I worked for Mrs. Gray for, like I said, 6 years. And I worked for a wage there with her, too. I was making, I'll never forget, I was making $120 a week with Jimmy. And these people wanted to hire me. So I said to Jim, I said, Mrs. Gray wants to hire me. He says, well, go. And I said, I don't want to go. He said, no, it's time to go. So I did. I went and met with her. And
How long had you worked for him at that point?
3 years, probably.
Okay.
So anyway, I thought he wanted to get rid of me, right? So he said, no, it's time to go. It's time to go. And I said, I don't want to. He said, you can always come back here. So he said, go meet with them. So they moved around. They had a trailer in a trailer park there. So I went and met with them on Sunday, and they offered me $350 a week, 10% of what the horses earned, and a truck to drive.
So you won the lottery.
Yeah, exactly. So I go back to Jimmy the next day. So he said, did you meet with those people? And I said, yeah. What do you think? I said, they offered me a pretty good deal. So I said, I think I'm going to take it. He said, what did they offer you? I said, $350. He said, that's what I told him you were worth.
Oh, wow. So he knew. He pushed you over there.
Yeah.
Wow. That's nice, eh?
Yeah.
He didn't try to hold you there where he was.
No.
So did you with Jimmy, did you ever race against him?
Oh, forever, yeah.
Really?
Well, yeah, there in New England for the 8 or 9 years or whatever it was I was there. Then I went to Saratoga, raced there for 2 years, and then he went to the Meadowlands when the Meadowlands opened in New Jersey. They all went down there that had better horses. So then I went down a couple of times, and then we were closed from November till April, and Jimmy had colitis real bad. And he took a bad spell. He was sick, so he called me and said, how about coming down and race my horses? So I did.
Is that when you first started, or you'd already raced?
No, I was doing pretty good at that time, yeah.
So what was the lady's name again that hired you?
Mrs. Gray, Iva B. Gray.
And how long did you work for her for?
6 years.
6 years. So this is all in upstate New York?
No, New Hampshire.
Or New Hampshire.
They were from New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And I raced in Foxborough, like Boston area, in New Hampshire, and then moved to Saratoga, New York.
Yeah.
And by then they lived in the White Mountains. They lived in North Conway. They were New England people. They didn't want to come over to Saratoga to watch their horses race.
Yeah.
So I had one time 12 horses for them, and then I had 1 or 2. And they just, once they petered out, they just went home.
Okay.
And they kind of retired then anyway, so they were getting older.
So what was the biggest difference between the Canadian harness racing industry and when you went over to the U.S.?
I don't think much. There wasn't much.
Any bigger competition?
Oh yeah, a lot more
money,
people, more money, yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, and more money even than there was up here in Ontario at the time, right? Especially New Jersey. When the Meadowlands opened, it just opened up everything. It probably hurt a lot of small places because a lot of the better guys that had the better horses all flocked there. Everybody was welcome. Like New York was hard to get into, and it was small. And they had all the people they needed to, right?
Yeah.
But when New Jersey opened, it was a brand new avenue for everybody, and everybody flocked there.
So, the Meadowlands itself, okay. I mean, to me, I know nothing about it. I'd associate that with Springsteen, but but what was that? Like, tell me more about that. Like, what was that?
Well, what the Meadowlands was, like, for instance, like in New England. You would have on a Saturday night 3,500 people. At the Meadowlands, on the worst night, you'd have 12,000 people.
Wow.
So Monday, like say 12,000. Tuesday, maybe 12. Wednesday, 13 or 14. And Saturday, you could have up to 25,000 people at the races.
Okay.
That went on for years.
So what year would that? And that was just built.
76.
That was built in
September
76.
1st, 76. Yeah.
Wow. So then, would the purses come from the crowds and the betting, or would it come from any other funding?
No, just the betting in the crowds. So back, like even now, if you bet a dollar and you cashed, well, there's a takeout, right? Like a 20% takeout, say.
Yeah.
So average takeout was, say, 20%.
Yeah.
They're exotics or a little more. So they were betting $2 million a night. There's $400,000 a night.
Yeah.
Coming out of that bet. So then it split 50-50 between purses and operating costs for the racetracks.
So and then from the purses, then it filters down. Then you get your 10% and
5% is a driver.
Yeah.
10% for trainer driver.
Yeah.
But you both get 5%. Yeah.
Would you do that very often? Train and drive?
In the beginning, first 2 or 3 years,
And then
I just got busier driving, and I only had 4 or 5 horses. I had as many at the Meadowlands as 30.
Yeah.
Then I kind of liked the driving. You show up at 7 o'clock at night, and you went home at 11:30. That's
so. Would you know? Like, so I guess I question before I jump into that. Was the Meadowlands like at this time in '76? Would that be like? Would you consider that like the height or the golden age of the harness industry?
From 76, well, even people like New York, it was good way back in the 60s too, 50s, 60s. But that was at just that one place. And Chicago was fairly big. California, seasonal, but was big. But you had to move around. But the Meadowlands, we were there for 8 months a year. Yeah. And it was the place. I mean,
was that the biggest place? Was that like the most iconic place to race?
Absolutely.
Or would there be anywhere in like...
Nope. That was it.
Nowhere California or nothing Florida.
Close. Nothing close. No.
So they would come to you, come up there.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So then when you you drive for other owners.
Yeah.
So there's no exclusivity there at that point in time. You wouldn't be at one farm and say, okay, I'm only racing these guys here. Maple Lodge Farm. No. So then you could have how many races a night?
12.
You could have 12 races a night,
yeah.
And did you do that quite frequently?
Every night, pretty much.
Like every night
for 15 years, or so, yeah.
Holy shit!
I drove one time. Was August 16th, 1984. It was, and I'll explain later why that's stuck in my brain. But I went to.
That's when Chris was born, no?
It was, yeah. He was born just shortly after that. So I started in Morning, New Jersey, flew to Springfield, Illinois, raced 10 horses. Came back to Meadowlands and raced 10 horses that night. And I won, so I raced 20 horses, and I won 10 races. And I made about $1.3 million in purses that day.
Just yours, or was that like taken out?
No, for the owners. For the owners, I get 5% of that.
And you'd get 5% of that.
Yeah. It's still a good day.
Yeah. So I guess that's deceiving too. So like when I read online that says, you had 9 million and 10 million in yearly earnings and 100 million over your career. Yeah. It's 100 million over your career, but it's 5 or 10%.
5 mostly, yeah. Much 5%, yeah.
Okay.
There'd be the odd. I've driven horses.
Just say 1% for all the creditors out there.
Yeah,
all right?
Exactly. Yeah, they're gone. The statute of limitations is on now. Anyway, yeah, they can't chase me no more.
So I guess then, in terms of your production, was that a normal schedule for a driver at that time?
No, just
was Bill
John Campbell?
Yeah,
would be for John and I.
Okay,
and Mike LaChance and Walter Case, back in those Benny Webster, Buddy Gilmore, guys that traveled around us group. Would there'd be 8 horses in a race, so there'd be probably 4 or 5 of us would come from New York, New Jersey to drive them. So then, you were familiar with a lot of the drivers that you were up against. Yeah.
So then, what would predict the win? Was it the horse? Was it the driver? Was it both? Like if you had a horse that was just an absolute stud, you were like, okay, this is going to be mine.
Yeah.
You knew it.
Well, you hoped it, unless something went awry.
Yeah.
If you get somebody, a lot of things could happen. somebody could park you, run into you. You know, their horse could make a break. I mean, there's lots of things that could happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, you hope that everything went fine. Yeah.
And I mean, I guess that's your odds, right?
Yep. Yep. And people know that too. The people that bet, going, this horse is way better than the rest of this bunch, but they still have to race them.
Well, it's interesting too, because I can remember going to the track with you one time and with Chris and going through like the history of the horses and really diagnosing it. Like, to me, I'd pick a name based. I'd pick a horse based on the name, right?
Yeah.
You know. So there is like I mean, for people out there that are avid gamblers, there is a system within there, correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. And the guys that bet now, it's even more. Way more electronically, now with the algorithms, and they have a rating system. Back in those days, it was just guys that watched races, and they could tell you where this horse race was at every step of the mile. Yeah. Every horse. I mean, not just one or two. Where now they just punch it all into a computer, right? Yeah.
But you're like so you never gambled.
I didn't say that.
Right? No. You couldn't. Well, you weren't big on it, right?
No, but I couldn't bet on anybody else in a race.
Could you bet on yourself?
On myself, yeah.
You could.
Yep.
And would you do that quite often?
Yeah.
So then, with your purse, your 5%, you could still have.
Sometimes, yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
Or you could go home with 3%.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, we'll put it this way: what's the biggest win in that respect?
58,000.
58,000
one night.
One night.
Yeah.
On like multiple races.
Yeah.
But you would get your 5%, and then you would also have the bet, or was that just with the bets?
Both. Yeah, the 5%. Had nothing to do with it. Me and another guy, we bet a round robin, 5-horse parlay, like a 5-horse round robin.
Yeah.
4 of them won.
Yeah.
So we got 58,000 apiece.
Yeah.
We bet $400, each time, right? So the one that didn't win, if he'd have won, we'd have got 220,000.
Holy.
So, but that was not my idea. That was him. He was a gambler, and we just having lunch together. And he goes, "Why don't we bet a round robin?" He said, "What do you like tonight?" So I'm going through the program. I like this one, this one, this one, this one. So there was like 6 horses. So he said, "Let's bet a round robin." Well, I didn't even know what a round robin was. So he says, $200. The most you can lose is $1,200. Okay. So he calls me later on and said, "Oh, the bookie will only take 5. We got to eliminate one." So we eliminated 1, and 4 to the 5 won. And that was my share, was 58,000.
But like you say, the bookie, so like it was like illegal gambling?
Yeah. Well,
yeah. So okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
So okay, so like,
is it illegal? I don't know. Between 2 guys?
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate your candor. Okay, so let's jump back. So then that one race, or that one weekend where you had 20, was it a weekend, 20 races?
One day,
20 races.
Yeah.
1.3 million gross.
About that. Yeah.
65,000 earnings.
Correct. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What year?
84.
So like, I mean, that's one day, a 65. I mean, like, I don't even know what that would convert to today's dollars.
Yeah.
But it's a shitload of money.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like, how did you manage that aspect of it? So did you, were you a big saver, or like, because I do find many people in the industry, okay, are like hot and cold, super, super rich one year and dirt poor the next year.
Yeah. No, we managed it better than that, right? Really, I pay my taxes.
Yeah.
And I put as much money.
You hear that? He pays his taxes.
Yeah, and always have. And actually, I got a refund this year, first time ever in Canada, first time ever. So I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
And I got one from the United States last year, first time ever too. So,
okay, good.
So it took me 76 years to do that, but I always pay my taxes, I think my share, and I put as much money away in a 401k as I could. Okay,
so then, but you do like, I mean, that was a big problem in the industry, was it not? Where the quick money, easy come, easy go.
Yeah.
Like you must have seen a lot of people where, 1 year they're, they've got $150,000 truck, and the next year someone's taking it away.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow. So like the consistency then, like, I mean, for those guys out there that don't have like how did you maintain that consistency? You just all of a sudden got a name, and then the people with the best horses would call you and say, "Hey, Bill."
Yeah.
That's it.
And some trainers I'd have a relationship with, like with Jerry Silverman had 100 horses. I drove most of his horses. Freddie Grand had 45 or 50. I drove most of his. And then myself, when I had like 30, I had to drive mine first. Lou Martinez had a big stable, 40 or 45, and I got first call on a lot of those horses. And Billy Houghton had 180 horses, and I drove a lot of their horses too.
Did you ever drive your own horses?
Oh yeah.
So like you could have your well, I guess that 5% it'd all be yours, right?
Yeah.
So you would train your own horses and drive your own horses.
You get 10% in. The trainer gets 5.
Yeah.
And the owner and the driver gets 5.
But then if you drive your own.
But that I own.
Yeah. Did you ever do that?
Oh yeah. You get it all.
Then you get it all.
Yeah.
So I mean, the industry for you was quite profitable.
Yeah.
Wow. So then what's like? I mean, that like I look at my industry, okay,
Right.
and the top 1% make all the money. Is that the same?
Same. Yeah. Exactly the same way. I think most businesses are like that, right? That a competitive business is like that. IBM versus some other small company too, right?
Yeah.
Probably don't make. You might have just as good a product, but they just don't have.
So when you got so you had the money coming in, you had the foresight enough to not gamble it all away, okay, and or drink it all away or whatever, right? Yeah. And then so that's like, would you say that that's kind of attributed to how long-standing you are in the industry? Like, because I'd imagine some people get sick of it, right?
I suppose, I got nothing to be sick of it about, right? Really, I mean, I got nothing but good memories.
Yeah.
From being in the business, being successful, then taking this job at COSA, which is it's the same thing. You're dealing with the same people, only on a different subject, maybe a lot of times.
So when you were in the Meadowlands, you were living there at the time.
Yep.
Okay, and then is that where you met Barb?
Yep.
So you got married there.
Yep.
You had 3 kids in the U.S.
Yeah, they were all born there. Yeah.
And then you came to Canada.
2001, we came up here, came to Canada, and my driving career was over.
Yeah.
And here they were doing, they had a lot of money, a lot of slot money to race for here. Yeah. It was probably the best purse money in North America was here, right?
At the time.
At the time, yeah. So we moved here.
Was that just because of the slots?
Yep. Absolutely.
And then the Meadowlands would have kind of died down at that point in time?
No, we're still doing pretty good there, but not for me. But, the younger guys come along. I could have stayed there and trained horses, but for the Meadowlands, and it raced 7 months a year, right? But January till August. Then you had to find a place to go with your horses. And I lived 38 miles from the farm. And I had to go there every morning and then back home and then back down the Meadowlands 20 miles. It just got to be too much. So I had to make a choice. Okay. I can't do that. I either got to move out there by the farm. If I'm going to move, then I'll move somewhere where there's a lot of opportunity, and that was here.
And that was here.
So we bought a piece of property just up the road here in Acton, or Erin actually it is, and built a farm and stayed there for 10 or 12 years, and then the kids left and the dogs died. Yeah. So I sold the farm and bought a townhouse that you were the agent on. You sold a house too.
Yeah, I know. I remember that. Well, I remember the story when you found the farm you found the land, right? Because you saw an old sign.
It was an old sign. Red Ball Realty. It was called.
Can you remember what the agent's name was?
No, he was an Italian guy from Toronto.
Yeah.
And he told me the whole story that this old Italian guy loved a piece of property. And he came out there and it was his farm.
Yeah.
And he had gardens and whatnot. And there were still some footings in the field there where he had an old building there years and years ago. Yeah. And he died, and he had a daughter and son that had no interest in it. And they put it on the market. Like, it was 15 years before that. And the sign fell down, an old tin sign.
Well, it's funny because we see a lot of those. We call them like 10-acre strip lots.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of Italians that would come from the city and they'd have them as their summer gardens.
Yeah, that's what he did.
All right.
I think he had a laundry. I think they said he had a dry cleaner. He was a dry cleaner.
Oh, really?
In Toronto, yeah.
So when you came here, did you still have your own horses?
Yeah, I brought my own with me. Yeah.
You did. Okay, so then you were still racing your own horses with success at that as well?
Yep. Yep.
What about the characters in this industry? Like I find, it's like I think you don't find them anywhere else, right? Like, I mean, well, you might in real estate, but like our mutual friend Frank, for instance. Okay,
right, yeah.
When I first met him, he was living on your couch,
Yeah.
and I actually first met him at an open house that I hosted an open house at your house.
Yeah.
And he had a bender the night before, and he had just woke up when I came in the door, and the first thing he did was offer me a beer. I think he thought I was there to party.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Carry on.
Yeah. So like, and he's the type of guy that like, he's, I mean, how do I, he'll do anything for you, rough around the edges, but a hell of a personality.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And I mean, he, like, even him, I've continued a relationship with him through real estate, and it's been great. So like, tell us a little bit about that. Like just the personalities.
Well, Frank, I know him from New Jersey back in the 80s. He worked for a guy from here who was down there racing. And then he stayed there for quite a while, and then he moved back home and did very well. He was in Rideau, Carleton, over in Ottawa, Flamborough, and then worked his way to the Mohawk circuit and the Woodbine circuit, and did really well. So anyway, long story short, he's got a farm up in, I forget, a little town up the road here, up above us in
the Hillsburg area.
Yeah,
Orton.
That's it, Orton, yeah. So anyway, he had a farm, and he and his wife were divorcing.
Yeah.
So things weren't very good. So I said, well, come on down, stay with me until you get this thing straightened out. Well, I thought it'd be 3 weeks or something. He was there for a year and a half. so anyway, I'll never forget when the guy came with you for you or the people that bought the house, and I was mowing the paddock, and I was on the tractor, and it was a lady. She whispered to her realtor, and he said, "What's the bottom line you'll take for this place?"
Yeah.
So I said, $650 if you take Frank.
Yeah.
He said $630.
Yeah.
So anyway, Frank, he was there all that time, and then he said, "Where are you moving to?" I said, "I'm not telling you."
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Frank.
since then he's gone. He bought a couple houses and stuff with you, and then he went to moved to Florida, and he does really well. Really well.
Hay, right?
He's a hay, and now this year he's picked up grain too, like the bag grain for Sharps here from
Sharps.
Yeah. So anyway, they must send it down. He buys hay up here anyway and takes it down there.
Yeah, I remember that. So like, who's the biggest personality in this industry that really, really makes a big impact on you throughout your career?
Who was? I think Jim Doherty, and my uncle and Jim Doherty. My mother, she never wanted me to do the horses, right? I remember her saying, "If you go to college, once you get out of college, I'll buy you a horse." And I go, "Mom, if I go with the horses, I can buy my own horses." So that was my theory.
Well, and I guess too, like, how did your mom and your dad, like, with your dad being a coal miner, and then you go to Meadowlands and you have all this success.
Yeah.
How did they, like, what was he like? I mean, he's happy for you. Did they come and see you?
Yeah.
Like, what was that like?
Well, he lived his life through me then at that point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what he would have been loved to do. But, he just couldn't do it and support his family at the same time.
Yeah, different time.
Yeah, a different time. It was a lot of years later, right? But my mother, she was always, even though she didn't care much for it, she was supportive, very supportive.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, and I supported them a little bit sometimes too, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, which was fine. I got no qualms about that, but
no, that's what you should do, right?
Yeah, exactly. Chris and Megan and Sean are listening to this, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Chris is still waiting. He's still waiting for the buried treasure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, like, I guess for us here, the in the 70s and 80s, what was the industry like? Was it very cutthroat? Did you, like, I guess, what were the regulations like, and how has that changed from now? Like, I mean, I've heard stories throughout the years from you, right, about horses and what guys were doing to the horses. And, so, like, some owners, do they mistreat horses? Do some treat them better? And what kind of, like were you seeing races rigged? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
You hear about that all the time, and even guys that I raced against a lot, they would go, "Oh, he was cheating, he was doing this, he was doing that," And I raced against them a lot. If they were good at it because you couldn't tell, put it that way. So a lot of it's a lot of jealousy, innuendo. You bet on a bad horse, right?
Yeah.
And naturally, you bet on the right horse, and the guy stiffed him, right? You didn't try to win with him or something. So you hear a lot of that stuff. Was there a lot of that went on back in the day? Maybe, but not in my day. Especially with the Meadowlands, they raced for so much money there that there was no need to do that stuff.
What was some of the stuff that they were doing? Like, what would someone do to get a horse ready? Adrenaline? Like, what would they like? Is there anything that they would?
Well,
like they don't do steroids or like they never did that.
Oh yeah, for sure. That was equipoise. Is what equipoise is? It's a steroid. It's like it's a hormone.
Uh-huh.
I always said if it wasn't for equipoise, I would have been an electrician.
Okay.
Because every horse I gave them 5 cc's equipoise, and guys that I would get them from, and it would move them up 3-4 seconds.
But would that be legal then?
Yep. Yeah.
So that was.
Yeah, not now. I mean, all that stuff is gone by now. There was so much stuff legal at the time, and it was stuff that is illegal now that should be legal because there's a lot of stuff that's illegal that they're using maybe, right?
Yeah.
And they've had, you hear that all the time.
But everybody would be doing that then, right?
Not really. No.
So that what was it called?
Equipoise.
Equipoise.
Yeah.
So then that was injected, and that's a steroid and that would just fire the horses right up.
Make a rabbit fight a grizzly bear.
Really?
Some horses. I mean, it was.
I should try it.
It was. You're big enough as it is, but it would make them very aggressive. Some of them.
Yeah.
Some mares, they would think they were studs. But it was just part of racing horses. Like if you had one that was not eating good or not coming out of a race good, it would make them eat better, and it would muscle them up and stuff. So it was. I don't think it was even thought of as bad at the time, right? So
then, what else was there that was similar to like that?
They've had breathing stuff. I mean, I was never much into all that stuff. So you just hear stories. A trainer will get hot and win. Like for 2 months, all his horses will do good. Oh, he's using this or he's using that and using this and using that. 6 months later, you see him, he hasn't won a race in 3 months. Well, what happened to all that good stuff you had 2 months ago? Well, it's there's a good story that Bill Cosby used to tell in his comedy act, and I went to see him one time, and he said that they were with I Spy. That was a show he was with, him and Bob, whatever his name was, and they fly to Spain, and they're going to do some filming over there. So he says to Bob, they're in the car, and he says, I'm going to ask this taxi driver about some Spanish fly. Yeah. For sex, right? So he gets in the car, and they're driving along, and the taxi driver says to them, where are you guys from? He said, America. He said, you bringing an American fly over with you? Yeah. So it's that's just the way it is, right?
That's it.
And that's what it is in the horse business. People, they get bad names, but they're good horse people. Or they have good horses at a period of time that they race good.
What about the one, I think you were telling us one time where someone did was it like salt or something they put down their throat? They put something in, they open the horse mouth and put something down its throat.
Oh, they were baking soda.
Baking soda.
Yeah, that was a big thing for a while, yeah.
So what would that do?
Keeps
and is that illegal?
Yeah.
It is.
Well, they have a level for it.
Okay.
So if you're above that level, you're considered a positive test, and it's a big suspension. It's 6 months and like a $5,000 fine.
Yeah.
And for the horse too, it's 30. I don't know if they do now. They were for a while, 30 days for the horse or something too. But anyway, it keeps your lactic acid from building up.
Okay. So the muscles don't cramp.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wouldn't think that would be, baking soda like.
It wasn't the baking soda. It was the way they were administering it. A lot of people, they were tubing it in them.
Yeah.
They didn't know how to tube them.
Yeah.
And they were putting it in their lungs and stuff. And, and the powers that be heard stories about that. And if you heard one of those, that's one too many.
Yeah.
And that's what put the
kibosh to it. Would that potentially kill a horse?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Turn into pneumonia and kill them.
Wow.
So that's happened a few times, I'm sure. And but it's a great. One friend of mine, he used a lot of it, and he wasn't doing so good. So he said, "You know what? I'm going to call Arm & Hammer and see what there's a substitute for baking soda." So he calls, told him who he was, and he says, gets on the phone with this lady, and she goes, we use baking soda for the horses and, you know, all this stuff. And she goes, yeah, I heard that. He said, now, I got a question for you. What's the substitute for baking soda? She said, sir, there is no substitute for baking soda. So,
jeez.
But now it's, you know, it's tested. You get, they test for horses for it. A lot of that stuff like equipoise, they're steroids. You can use them up to like 30 days from within racing.
Okay.
Baking soda, you could use it very, very little, but I don't know if you could give them enough to help. I don't know.
Yeah.
I never was a baking soda guy, so.
So then, so I mean, like right now, I guess the difference too, like the regulations have changed entirely.
A lot, yeah.
Right.
Ton, yeah.
So what are the things that you're seeing now that someone could get flagged for or suspended for?
Now, whipping's a big one.
Whipping?
Yeah. In that we heard, and if I have one thing that I would really like to take back in my life by driving horses was I used too much whip. Yeah. And I wasn't considered a whip guy, I don't think. But and I think the majority of the people will tell you that. So about 10, 12 years ago now, we implemented a rule here in Ontario, no whipping. You can't take both reins in one hand and, you know, raise your hand above your shoulder and all those things. And you can't really hit them hard anymore. Yeah. And horses have since gone 3-4 seconds faster.
Without the whip.
Without the whip. The drivers, the young drivers now, the James McDonalds, Doug McNairs, Scotty Zerons, that drive our top guys in the nation, like in North America, they don't know how to. They wouldn't know how to hit a horse. They just don't.
So
do
the
it.
Whipping. So like I mean, they don't even carry. They don't even hold.
They
the whip.
carry it, yeah.
Oh, they do.
You can pick them at it, like, but you can't haul off and hurt them.
But they used to do that.
Yep.
So you would do that every so often, and
every race.
Yeah, and over the head.
Oh yeah, big time, yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Hit the shaft. A lot of times, it hit them in the belly and stuff, or you could hit them right on the. I used to say, the rule, you couldn't hit the shaft, which is part of the race bike, but it just made a noise. But they want you to hit the horse right on the bare ass. I go, that does not make any sense whatsoever to me. Yeah. You're hurting them, right, and welting them up and stuff. So anyway,
but you could see why you'd think it might, it's startling or
yeah.
Right?
Maybe the first time or 2 times.
Yeah.
But not 15.
No, I guess 20. You're right. Yeah, it'd numb at that point.
Yeah. Well, they just pull up. They just give up, right?
So there's actually so now all the data tells you that whipping, it's not conducive to winning a race or anything like that. It's if without it, the horses are performing better.
You could show some people that data and goes, oh no, the breed's better. The wheels are better on the bike. The race bikes are whatever. They tell you all kinds of stories.
Yeah.
That maybe I'm wrong, but I just know that watching races, and they always zoom in on the last race here at Woodbine on the replay, that horse is a lot happier now than he used to be when he was getting his ass beat off.
And the confidence, you can see that in the horses,
see that,
right?
You can't see that. Their ears are back and they're going, "What are you doing to me?" Right? I'm running my legs off here as it is.
Yeah.
And you're wanting me to go faster, and I just can't. And I got no baking soda, and my lactic acid is built up.
Yeah. Can you if you look at a horse, can you tell all that stuff from it? Like, can you tell the confidence and the, if I look at horses, I say, oh, geez, look at the size of that one, and then it's the tiny little one that wins the race.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no real tell, right?
The one thing you can look at colts, and I look at colts for people all the time, and you get the ones that got the best conformation, or I really like his eye. I like his nostrils are big. He's got lots of room under his throat to breathe and stuff. He stands perfect. He's going to be sound. But the one thing you can't see is desire, and that's what it all boils down to: desire.
And that's like a fight in them. That's like any athlete.
It's anything, any athlete, right? Anybody, anything, any aspect of life, I think, right?
Yeah.
If you got no fight in you, then.
But you would be able to feel that if they were racing, or you can't just look in their eye.
No. I always said you train them for 8 months. Say when they're babies, you break them in the fall, get them going in the cart, and train them all winter. And you go, I got 4 colts, and you go, boy, I got 2 really good ones. You put them behind the gate in competition. The 2 good ones are bad, and the 2 bad ones are good.
Really?
They will lie to you every time. But they stop lying once you put them in competition.
So I guess so. Give me some of the progress of a horse where, I guess for you, what's the type of horse that you find that you would bet on every day? What's your favorite?
Horse with a big ass. That's mine. They get power. That's really.
No, I'm talking about horses.
Oh yeah, both. Yeah. Well, the girl's not so big, but anyway, the horses that are they're relaxed. Yeah. That's number one. It's got to be a big part. For when I drove, I loved them.
But there's no breed or there's
no. Oh yeah, sure. Right now, he's kind of gone by a little bit now. Eh?
Or lineage.
Yeah, some beat somewhere. Like the horse, and he was a Canadian horse, raced up here. He was Ontario bred. And it's unbelievable what he's done for the breed. And he died 6-7 years ago at young. He was young, like 13 years old. He was standing stud for about 10 years, but it's unbelievable what he's done. Like his sons and his daughters, how they've bred on.
And that's quite common in the industry, right? Like so yeah. For someone outside looking in, there's not like, Arabian horse or like where do the best horses come? Where do the best horses come from?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
it
does. It does. Now this is a book that was written in 1929 that I read, and this is back in the 80s. I read it that there's 3 places in the world that world champions, the majority of the world champions, come from.
Okay.
1 is Ireland, the whole island of Ireland. 2 is 50-mile radius of Lexington, Kentucky, and that's where a lot of horses are. The 3rd one is the Chesapeake Bay in Maryland.
Really?
Yeah.
And then a lot of that lineage can be tracked. Like you buy something in Chesapeake Bay and you bring the stud up here. You can you develop it, and then from there.
Well, it's the calcium, right? That's what it is. The limestone.
Yeah. That
builds strong bones.
So then would they not, like, if you bred, would they not get weaker as they come?
They could, yeah.
And what type of horses are they?
Well, what do you mean? What type? Standard bred horses, like you mean?
Yeah, like, do you have any? I guess for someone that's not in the industry, how do you distinguish between, like the names of them?
They're standard breds.
That's it. Like you have your standard bred, you have your thoroughbred.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you don't cross them. Arabs. You have so many breeds of horse. Actually, there's 50. There was. I went to Belmont Park one time to drive a horse in a parade.
Yeah.
It was called Parade of Champions. There was 57 breeds of horses there.
So, but like I guess that's what I'm getting at. Like, what are the type of breeds?
Well, standard bred, that's what we race in the race bikes. Then you got the thoroughbreds, you got the quarter horses.
Yeah.
And you got Appaloosas, you got paint horses, you got, there's so many different.
So would they
horses.
not race, like could you not race an Appaloosa as a standard bred?
No.
Why not?
They're not bred to pace, right, or trot.
So what's the distinguishing factor?
Well, it just comes back. They all come back from one horse called Hamiltonian. That's where they start, right?
Okay.
And as they went, he was a trotter.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden, some of them don't want to trot; they want to pace. So you go, okay, you got 2 of them want to pace. So you breed them together. So now you got 2 pacers, and you got a pacer coming, right?
Yeah.
So that's how it started way back and when, 150 years ago. So how do you distinguish that now? You look back into their lineage, right? Back into say, well, he goes back to a trotting bred horse.
Yeah.
And they're mixing a lot of them now too, right? Trotters to pacers, pacers to trotters, and it works. It really works. So it's
so it's coming down more to a science then.
We think so, but it's no science.
Yeah, because until you get them on the track, you don't know.
Yeah. Well, you get. There's a horse called Ramblin' Willie that he won $2 million back in the 70s and early 80s. He was from Iowa. He was by a real, a stallion that nobody really heard of, and a mother, and a guy bought him. Bob Farrington bought him, and he became a world champion. And the only thing about it was his wife's father was a minister, and he donated 10% of his earnings to the church. And he was an $18,000 horse that made $2 million. So,
okay, so that's interesting. So, I guess like over the years with all the horses, with your you're almost 6,000 lifetime wins.
Yeah.
Wins. So
Yeah.
that, like, how many races would you have done in your career?
30. Well, actually documented ones.
Yeah.
33,000 or something. But then you count all the qualifying races and the non-betting races and training horses and schooling horses. So 70,000 times probably.
Out of all that, can you pick one horse that would be your favorite?
Oh yeah.
Which one?
Two. One was a horse called Travelin Boy.
Travelin Boy?
Travelin Boy. He was owned by Mrs. Gray.
Yeah.
He was my first win. And I raced him from the time he was 3.
That was New Hampshire, right? Where was she?
Actually, she was from New Hampshire. Yeah. Actually, my first win was in Maryland. Okay. That I was down there racing the horses, and I raced him and won with him when he was 3 years old, and I raced him till he was 12.
Yeah.
And raced him at the Meadowlands, and he won his last start at the Meadowlands, and he got a suspensory problem, so I sent him home, and he retired. But he for sure, he was the one that taught me a lot more than I taught him.
Yeah.
The Annihilator was another horse that I raced that I won a $2 million race with.
Yeah.
That I'd never driven him before.
What year?
84.
Wow.
I'd never driven him before, and Billy Houghton, who was an icon, a real icon in the business, and he trained him, and he drove him, and he won his elimination the week before, and he took himself off and put me on him. And
so the Annihilator, how would he perform today with the horses now?
I think he'd be okay. I think it's hard to compare. It's different times, right?
Yeah.
With anything. So his fastest time was 1:49.3. The fastest time now is 1:45.4.
Wow.
That was an Ontario horse too, by the way.
Really? Mm-hmm. Born and raised?
Yeah. No, born in Pennsylvania.
So where do the horses go when they retire?
Well, not where we want to see them go, but now every breed now.
Yeah.
Like we have one that's called OSAS, right? Ontario Standardbred Adoptive Society. Uh-huh. So I'm vice president there. So we've probably placed 700 or 800 horses probably over the years.
Yeah.
That we take them in. So we only have room for 30. That's all we can afford.
Yeah.
At a time. But there's a place in Milton Molicus, they break them to ride, and that's what they're used for. It's called, a new career for them, basically, right? Yeah. So you're not just going to turn them out in the field, and they're not the real lame ones and stuff like that. You got to have something not too old, and we try to bring them along, and then people will adopt them. So what they do is they foster them for 3 years, and then if we're happy with you and you're happy with us, then we'll give you the horse. But you can't sell the horse at a killers or any of that kind of stuff.
So do they like certain horses they'll breed?
Oh yeah, a lot of them. Yeah. Right? The mares. Yeah. Most mares get bred. The stallions, just the better ones really, are commercial ones. So they'll breed a couple hundred mares a year.
But they race the mares and stallions together?
Yep. Not much.
Are they all? Yeah. Or the stallions will race stallions and mares?
Well, it's stallions and geldings.
Yeah.
They'll race together. The mares will race together, and then the same with trotters. We try, but it's hard. We don't have enough mare trotters, so they'll
mix.
Race. Yeah, they mix. Yeah, the better ones.
Yeah. Okay.
And if they're not really good, there's no sense of keeping them racing. They're not going to make any money, so they breed them.
Yes. So you try to adopt some. Do they ever put any down?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's probably a big criticism of the industry, you think, where they race and make the money and then
yeah.
Okay. So they'll go to an adoption. Do you find many people still keep the horses, just to put it out in pasture or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lawn ornaments we call them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do. They buy, a couple. They might have one, and they'll contact OSAS like Joanne and just say, I got a horse, a gelding, and his buddy died.
Yeah.
So I need a partner. Do you have anything? Yeah, we'll find you something. So then that's for the older horses that are not going to be shipping around every week in competition and stuff, right?
Yeah. If a horse dies, this might be a bit morbid, but what do they do with the body? They bury it? They burn it?
Burn it. Yeah.
Because they're so damn big, right?
Cremate it, yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, we used to You can go to the University of Guelph. I had a couple that you had to euthanize that their ankles seized up and stuff, and we kept him around as a lawn ornament, but he just got worse and worse. So I took him to university and to get him euthanized. And so when I was there, I said, "How much to do that?" And they went, "Well, if we can use him for research, nothing. If we can't, $180." I said, "I'll pay for the $180."
Yeah.
I don't want him standing in a stall somewhere with, stuff sticking out of him like they do with, but that's life. That's what they do. So they said, okay. I said, I want to see you euthanize him.
So then they much like any athlete, right? When they're finished competing, you get shoulder injuries, knee injuries, and if they do have that and they can't, if they can't walk, then there's no other real option for them.
No, right, exactly. But a lot of them. Not that I've kept a lot of them because I rotated them a lot and I bought and sold them.
Yeah.
But this one that I euthanized there, that we took him back because he was pretty good for us, and then somebody else had him and just said he was lame, and we'll take him and just turn him out. So, but and I've had a couple that have broke down, that training or racing or whatever the case may be, and you have to euthanize them.
Do you find that's a big criticism of your industry, or do you get any activists on that?
Oh yeah, PETA is very big in that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But PETA's not. They're not against racing, or they're against everything as far as you shouldn't neuter cats, dogs. They shouldn't be cooped up in your house. You know, they're just maybe a little too radical sometimes. But do they do some good work? Yeah, I'm sure.
Of course. Yeah.
But do they know when to stop? I don't think so.
No.
They just want, their end result is to have them all running loose on the street and stuff. I guess, I don't know, but
so then I guess, like, going back to training, when would you think a horse is at its peak?
5-6-year-old.
A 5 or 6 year old. So you have to train it for 5 to 6.
Oh no, they race.
Okay.
But they just get, hopefully, like they there's a lot of myths about, I'm not going to race him as a 2-year-old because his joints aren't this and that and all. But the data shows that the ones that races to and train it to last longer.
So you wouldn't race them at 2 years would be the earliest that you would race them.
Yeah.
And then how long do they last for?
14. They can race till they're 14.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that common?
No, not really. No.
When would you say the peak is? 5 or 6?
8.
8 or 9. How old was the Annihilator when you raced?
2 and 3. 2 and 3.
2 and 3.
Yeah.
And then what happened after that?
He went to stand stud. He was a stallion and bred mares after that.
Really?
Yeah. But they sold him he got sold for $19 million.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Is that, so they thought, okay, this is going to be a stud horse. We're not going to race him anymore, because they would have made a shitload of money.
Not really. Well, racing? They could have made, maybe in those days with an aged horse, 400,000, maybe 5 tops
To race. Even though the purses, you did a $2 million purse.
No, there wouldn't be $2 million though. That's only for the 2-year-olds.
Okay.
There's nothing for aged horses. There is now. There wasn't then. They just raced what they call overnights, week in and week out. They had they might have 3 stakes for them that year.
Yeah.
So you could have made 400,000.
Yeah.
Or you take them to a farm and stand them stud and breed 150 mares at 35,000 apiece. So
then he got sold for 19 million. What year? In 84?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What would he sell for now?
8 million.
8?
Yeah.
So it's gone down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that, what does that tell us about the industry?
It's going in the wrong direction, right?
Yeah. So do you find the industry now, are there, is it most people will say, the owners don't make as much money as they put out with the farms and the training and the feed. And, would that still be the case? If you had a horse today, you're not making money. Right. The drivers and the trainers will make money, but the owners won't really make.
Well, I always compare it to own the boat.
Yeah.
You don't make any money on that boat either. But the guy that's servicing it, that puts it up in the wintertime and stuff, he's making money on it, right?
Wow. So then would you say that the majority of the owners would around Ontario, would you have just a handful of owners, right?
That
Like
make
just
money?
big stables, and then
No, we still have. No, there's lots of horses in Ontario, but not. There used to be, before years ago, one guy could own 4 horses.
yeah,
Now 4 guys own 1 horse. It's got so expensive,
yeah,
and the purse money has not kept up with that. Once we lost the slot money, we were getting about $175 million a year to race for, and I think that's what it was, 357 million or something like that. So now it's gone down to, we race for about 116 million in our industry.
yeah.
So and things have gone up. You know what a truck costs and a trailer. And I bought my first truck and trailer in 1973. I gave $3,600 for the truck and $1,300 for the trailer. The last one I bought, I gave $54,000 for the truck and $26,000 for the trailer.
Yeah.
So Bob's your uncle, right?
So okay, so and with that, right? How are we at for time?
Hour and 1 minute.
Oh, good, perfect.
Okay.
So with that, let's jump into the purses. So, I remember, when was it? 2010, 2012, when the Ontario government was going to stop
13 actually.
13, stop funding the purses.
Yeah.
And I remember that at a time too, because we had a bunch of people with farms, horse farms specific, that were like, okay, this is going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
We're going to sell.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people at that time that sold at a discount before the decision was made in order to, I can't remember who was the premier.
McGinty.
Mickey Dalton. Okay.
Yeah.
And they ended up renewing, right, the funding. But
Well, they didn't really.
no.
They took away, what we were getting was 10% of every dollar that was left in the machine at the racetracks,
Okay.
which, like at Mohawk, there was 800 machines maybe, and Woodbine 1,700, and then since then it's all changed, but they stopped all that. So they give it, as of April 1st, 2013, there was nothing.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of pushback, and we spent a lot of time lobbying and meeting with everybody. So we had a guy by the name of John Snowblen helping us, and he was a great help to us. And first it was 30 million, and by then Kathleen Wynne had taken over,
Yeah.
and she was a savior basically, and it was 30 million, then 50, and then 100. So
So
right
she increased.
she did, and I've heard people say, even the Minister of Finance, that there was 8 of them that were doing the budget or whatever, and he said, you had one friend in that room, and that was her. So she was pretty good.
Interesting.
Yeah. And she came to the track lots, and we had a guy by the name of John Wilkinson. He's from Kitchener. He had been Minister of Finance or something at one time under the Liberal government, and they had 3 guys as a panel, and he was one of them. And I remember him saying, when he came to the track here at Mohawk, I took him out and showed him, said, I went to see the lady that used to park the trucks and trailers. How many trucks and trailers you got here tonight? She said 54, out in the parking lot. So I said to him, every one of those out there is 54 trucks and trailers out there. So just give them a conservative number, 100,000.
Yeah.
That's $5 million worth of trucks and trailers in that yard right now.
Yeah.
So we were walking back. He said, when they asked me to do this, and the first time I looked at all the papers and stuff, I said, you know what, they don't deserve any money. But I changed my mind now. So that we do contribute to the industry, right? I mean, to the overall budget. So they spend money, a lot of money, at horse people.
So no, I'd agree.
Yeah.
I'd agree. So so I guess when you think about that, so I guess historically the purses were generated by money that came in the door.
Originally,
Right?
And
Like,
then
in the like that, so that was this case in the Meadowlands.
Yeah.
That would have been the
Yeah.
case in Ontario.
same, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then what happened was attendance would decline.
Yeah.
And then at some point in time, the government of Ontario or various governments decided, okay, we are going to sponsor the industry, or we're going to.
The only place they could get their slots approved, like in Milton, they went around to 17 or 18 different towns that they thought they were just going to move in and go, well, there's a piece of tract of land there, we're going to build a casino there. And the towns like Milton went, no, you're not. And then the racetrack said, well, Yeah,
Well,
we'll take you in for a percentage. So we got 20%. 10 went to the racetrack operators, owners, and 10 went to the horse people. And that went on for about, 15 years. And then they decided they're going to do away with it. Because I think what happened, I'm just guessing, they did what they call a land-based gaming study for a couple of 3 years. And I'm sure I know they invited us. We gave our, 2 cents worth like everybody did. And I think when they call it casino operators, like in big gaming people, like Breaking In Gaming, it's called Breaking In Entertainment now. And they said, this is silly. You got to give them 20%, right? So I don't know if that's the case or not, but once that was gone, and they just pay rent now, right, to the racetrack.
So that's what it is now. It's just
every place except Wake.
Except for where?
Wake, Woodbine Entertainment. I think they still get a percentage.
They get a percentage. Okay. So then, with that, when you mentioned the 30 million or the 50 million, so that's what they're giving for the purses for that particular
purses and operating costs
for that particular venue.
For everywhere, for all of Ontario.
Okay. So is that not a little light?
Yeah. Well, we were racing 12 or 1,300 days a year in all the tracks around. We in the tracks we've had a couple closed. Sudbury closed, and just 2 or 3 that's closed over the years since that. But they get it's in three different levels. The grassroots level, they get $35,000 a day for purses.
Yeah. And
the racetracks get about $30,000 a day to turn the lights on to operate.
Okay.
So the next level, they get around 60 or 65,000, 30,000 still to operate on. Now with Woodbine, they get X amount of dollars, and that's not enough to sustain it. So we at Standardbred, at Central Ontario Standardbred Association, COSA they call us, that we have a contract with them for X amount of dollars per year.
Yeah.
And what they get from the government and what they get from Handle, or percentage, doesn't amount to that. So they kick in.
Okay.
So to keep it up to that.
Okay. So then with those, so the purses now, I guess you still get money coming in from the door though. Like, is there
not as nearly as much? One time when it was just live handle, they call it, where everybody had to be there to bet.
Yeah.
So they bet $2 million, so you got 20%.
Yeah.
Now they bet $2 million, you get 5 or 6%. Most places get 3%.
Why?
So it's because you sell your signal to a racetrack in Australia.
Yeah.
And they pay you 3%, but they take the money in there. It comes through you.
Yeah.
And but they're still the 20% takeout, but they're making 8-17, and we're making 3.
Oh.
Bad deal.
Yeah.
And since the 90s, early 90s, and I remember being at the meeting when they were selling the simulcast, from the Meadowlands. They were starting to allowed to send their signal up. And the guy, Chris McElwain, was the guy that worked at the Meadowlands, and he told Hal Handel, who was the head guy, he said, listen, I tried 5%, no, 4%, no. He said, I think I can get them to take it on at 3%. I never forget, Hal says, there's only one thing wrong with that, Chris. What's that? He said, if a $300 hooker charges $200, she's a $200 hooker now.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened, right? So it's never gone up. That was his analogy of it.
So it's never gone down.
No, it's never gone up.
Or never gone up.
No.
Yeah, that's right. You settle, right?
Yeah.
Because you're right. Because I can be in an all-inclusive in Mexico.
Same business.
I can be in an all-inclusive in Mexico and watch a race.
Yeah.
And bet on a race.
Bet on it. Yeah.
Right.
But see, there's a little bit of a problem too. Is they have a lot of offshore stuff. That's it's bookies basically, right? But if you bet, if they would take a $2,000 win bet on a horse, and the horse paid $12, so they got to pay you now $12,000.
Yeah.
They don't have it.
Yeah.
It's because they're taking money that they don't have, like a bookie would, right?
Yeah.
But at the racetracks, it's a pool. It's there. They can only bet into that. They can only pay on what's in that pool.
Yeah.
So it's which keeps them in business, obviously, right?
But then how does that pool? So if you're offshore betting, what
got nothing to do with us. No, they're taking track odds.
Yeah.
So if you bet 2,000 there, and the horse wins in Mohawk and pays $12. Then they go, we got to pay this guy $12,000. Where do we get the money from? They're hoping that there's more losers betting than winners, right? And that's what booking's all about anyway, right?
Yeah. So
illegal bookies.
At that point, if it's offshore, it's just like a bookie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Now, they've had ways to curb that now.
Yeah.
But that's a big problem. It's a criminal code thing, right?
Yeah.
So, and they work on that all the time, so.
So then, so then with that fund, so I guess let's get into the Ontario or the Central Ontario Standardbred Association. So right now, you're the president.
Correct.
So what do you do? Is that a nonprofit?
Mm-hmm.
Is that, and what do you do there for the industry? And do you work cohesively with other associations?
Not really. No, we're independent. We're just in Ontario.
Uh-huh.
There's one other in Rideau Carleton, the National Capital. They're called. There's only one betting contract. There used to be betting contracts for every racetrack until this whole new thing happens now. There's only one. Yeah. So that's Woodbine has it, right? So we sign a contract with Woodbine for X amount of dollars, but the other ones they're come from the government. Here's what you got to give them here. Like this track races for this amount, and they apply for dates, and they get that. So here it's a little different. So what we do, we get a fee, and I have 2 people working for me, and with that money that we get, we work closely with Woodbine and all the other tracks too. We have relationships with 2 of the general managers or whatever. But what we do with that money is a few things. Number one is offer benefits for all the caretakers, the grooms. They get dental, all kind of
Sorry, benefits for who?
The grooms that work, just their caretakers to look after the horses. So they don't
at
make
the
it
tracks.
At the tracks or farms or whatever. As long as
at
they
the
work.
Farms too.
Yeah. As long as their employee
and they
or
pay
employer,
into the association.
They don't pay nothing. It's free. It's free. That most are, but I felt just give it to them. Yeah. We got lots of money, just to do that. What are we going to do with it anyway? It's nonprofit. We got to spend it. So it's working good. So we supply them with benefits, whatever, prescriptions, eyeglasses, all that kind of stuff, right? For no charge. Yeah. So it's X amount of dollars a month per person. So, and then with trainers, owners, drivers, if they want to opt in, they have to pay for their own. But we subsidize them for like 45% too. So that's where a lot of that money goes. Okay. Insurance policy, right? Big. And then we have insurance policies if a horse, liability policy, if a horse kills somebody. We got a $2 million policy. If he runs into your truck, your car, and that happens too, right? That we pay for that. We bought a couple trucks and new doors and whatever, right?
Where were they, like at the
racetrack or farms? The same thing, both, either one. If it's a farm where the guy's a member, and we've had them jumping back at pickup trucks and all that kind of stuff, right? And then we race bikes. Like your race bikes are very expensive. They're about $5,000. Yeah. When I was doing it, they were $350. But these fancy ones with the wheels are $1,500 a piece, or for 2 wheels, right? Yeah. And so if they get in an accident while in a race or on the racetrack, we pay up to $2,500 for that. So, and we're right at the racetrack at Mohawk. So,
so you guys just help out with insurance, with subsidy for the trainers,
members,
the members. So how do you become a member?
Sign up.
You just sign up.
Got to own a horse. You got to have a couple of things. You got to be members of Standardbred Canada, who are they're the record keepers in the full registration for Canada. So you got to be a member there, and then you have to be a member of the AGCO, the Ontario Gaming, in the province, right? Yeah. As an owner, groom, whatever.
Yeah. So where do you see the industry going? Like it almost seems it's like, there's less people. Like I mean, there's less crowds because there's less people that are interested in it.
Well, the big thing, that's a big thing. There's so many other things to do that there was in 1960, right? So where it's going right now, we don't have enough owners. We need lots more owners in the business. In order for owners to be attracted to the business, you got to race for purse money,
Yeah.
right? And that's a big thing. So with our long-term funding agreement with the government, it's 5 years is up now next March. So I'm on the board of Ontario Racing. So we met for a couple of days up at Hockley Valley last March and put together a new formula for the next 5 years.
Okay.
And passed that into the government, and they haven't got back to us yet. Other than they said we will support racing for the next 5 years. It's a 5 year.
But it's always 5 years. It's not
Yeah.
10 years or 20 years.
Well, they give it was 18 in the beginning, but there's a little stipulation in there. We'll review it every 5.
Every 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess they wouldn't log it.
Well, everybody, no matter what you do, you got to have a note in the contract, right?
So do you feel like, with the standard bred, do you feel like the thoroughbred is in the same position, or are they performing?
No,
the same. So their attendance is declining. Their purse money is declining.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean I don't know all the particulars there, but I know sitting there meeting with when Sue Leslie, she represents the horse people, and she says the same thing. Yeah.
So what would you say to someone that you're being funded by the government? If the government stops the funding, does the industry, what happens?
Dead. Done.
It's gone. And the history gone behind it and everything.
Yeah, everything. And and there's a lot of people hurt by it too, right? I mean, not that a farmer, if he's growing hay, couldn't grow corn next year, but that's not the government they're supposed to be responsible for their people, right?
Yeah.
To keep them. Does everything show a profit for the government? No.
No.
Just the way they are, right? They subsidize stuff.
Yeah.
And we're just happen to be a subsidy now that we never thought we were, but we are now.
Do you find that, do you find your numbers are increasing at the association?
Decreasing.
They're decreasing. So and I've run into a few drivers and they have a fall, their shoulders, their knees.
Yeah.
Do you find that there's any issues with, I guess medical care or pain pills or anything like that?
No, if they an issue with the pain pills and stuff, yeah, you hear that, but I don't know if maybe 15 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Not so much now, I don't think, with the oxycodons and stuff.
Yeah.
It was a big problem, I think, for some people. I got a broken heel right now. When I was in Florida, I jumped off a stair into the sand when you can't trust the sand anymore, and broke my heel.
Yeah.
And I go to the hospital, and I was at the emergency room, and the doctor there, he says, I got a prescription here for you for oxycodons. He said, there's 18. He said, you can take them one every hour, one every day, or one every month. But that's all you're getting.
But all you're getting is 18.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
And I still got a dozen maybe, but I took them, they're good at night to give you a good night's sleep the first while.
Yeah.
So now I'm just, running around on a boot and knee scooter now, but no pain no more. It's pretty much
So in terms of, how old are you now?
76.
Okay. You've got, you still have the passion, you still have the energy.
Yeah.
Is that you're not retired, right? You're not
Kind of. I passed along some of the day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
To one of the girls that work for us. She's the office manager now, where before she was kind of the bookkeeper.
Yeah.
And she's done a good job. She's only been doing it for a couple of months. It's taken a lot of weight off me, and I feel more comfortable with her too. She's been with me 15 years.
Yeah.
That I can just call her like you could with somebody that's been with you a long time.
Yeah.
They understand the business. She's been in the business her whole life. And here we had two gems sitting in the office, and we're going out trying to hire somebody else, right? Then they were right there the whole time.
Yeah.
So anyway, and she's done a good job. So if I have a day-to-day call, I'll just call and say, Stacy, call this guy.
Yeah.
take that off my plate. So
but you still have the energy, you still have the
yeah.
passion for the industry,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Are there a lot of old timers like yourself that are doing the same thing?
I don't think so. A lot of people. I'm not a complainer. I got my dad's attitude.
Yeah.
I never had a bad day in my life.
Okay.
Luckily, right? I mean, that's just the way I am. I can always see the glass is half full.
Yeah.
Or be realistic that it's not half full. But just to complain all the time, you can't do that. People that we deal with, the government, You can't go in and just complain to them all the time. Go in with a little bit of a plan. They like that. Then they can support you.
Have you always been like that?
Yeah.
When I was doing some research here before,
Right.
an article came up where, you're talking about being optimistic, right? And it's like the eternal optimist or whatever the title was.
Yeah.
Do you find that people would characterize you that way in the industry?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. My daughter Megan, Megan, she always, guys would come around the barn, and we had a lot of derelicts basically come around the barn, and she used to say, "Dad, you're a nut magnet." Because I'd give them money, and I said, but they're having a tough time.
Yeah,
just.
But you do see that in your industry, right?
Yeah.
Where these guys they got their heart and soul into these horses or into the races, and they still don't have a pot to piss in.
They don't care. They just don't care. One of the bigger things that happened to us with the caretakers, they closed the backstretch at Mohawk.
When you say caretaker, what do you?
A groom. He looks after the horse, the day-to-day stuff, right?
Okay.
He feeds them and takes care of them, jogs them, trains them, whatever the case may be. Puts them away, lives through his good times and bad times, takes them to the tractor race. But we had I don't know how many people were there, probably 60 people living on the grounds at Mohawk. So when they closed the backstretch of the barn area, they had to leave. That was the biggest complaint you heard. Here's guys that are paying $135 a month for a room.
Yeah.
With a room with a shower, and you had everything in it. Now they got to go and they got to spend $500, $600, $700 a month, and now they got to travel to work.
Yeah.
Where they were right there before, and maybe they don't have a car or they're sharing. They got to pay for that now. So that we lost a lot of people over that. But guys that they didn't care. They just loved it here, right?
Yeah.
Just living at the tracks.
Yeah. Well, I find too, like with some, I'm in a lot of places and properties, and I find with some barn, like with some horse people, the barns are nicer than the houses.
Oh, absolutely.
They treat the horses better than they treat the kids. So I guess for you, in terms of in the industry in its entirety right now, it's come a long way, and you've seen a lot.
Yeah.
Do you I guess it's every 5 years at this point, right? For you, there's no prediction of where the industry is going to go because you're at the whim of the provincial government.
Well, and that's the same everywhere, just about, right? The Meadowlands, they have no slot money at all. They race exclusively on handle money.
Yeah.
And most of it's simulcast too, and they really do try hard like they do here to get people here. Like we get complaints like, "Oh, your trackside restaurant wasn't open." Yeah, it was. There was 3 people in there and 5 people working.
Yeah.
How long is that going to last, right? You can't keep doing it. So you got to adjust.
Yeah.
And put a Tim Hortons in there, which they did.
Yeah.
Or they got the pizza place too, right? Stuff like that. But I was down there a couple of weeks ago on a Monday. There might have been 30 people there.
Yeah.
Really. But the handle was 1.7 million. So you don't even need that big grandstand anymore, right?
No. But I guess you'd still for the experience. It is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Right? Would you not anybody that's listening now that's not familiar with the industry?
Yeah.
I would encourage them to go and see some of the races on a Friday night or Saturday night because you can have dinner.
Yeah.
You can have your slots. You can
do it all. Now we have a couple of days now coming up soon. Is May 17th. They have the fireworks night. That's a big night at Mohawk.
Okay.
You'll have 5,000-6,000 people there probably.
Yeah. And
this last year, for not that, but you get a lot of people that bring their kids, for the fireworks.
I'm going to do that May 17th.
Yeah, and just come early because the traffic gets really backed up.
You're going to get me a seat, VIP, right?
Well, I don't think they even give them to me. I got to come in the back way and go to the paddock and work my way up. But if I go in the paddock, then everybody's complaining because the fireworks are going off. They're driving these horses crazy. Plug their ears. Put something in their ears. They'll be fine. And they are for the most part. But they have that. A lot of people come, and you see a lot of people come back. That by themselves. And we try to promote a little bit. We got some marketing money that they have boxes there that hold 25 people. We'll give them away to any kind of like the Milton District Hospital. Golf things, that they can bid on them, and people come, and when they do come, we give them a $25 betting voucher, everybody that comes. You got to pay for your own liquor, but food's included. And, it costs us, I don't know, $1,500, $1,700 for the box for food. And then the
so you could rent a box as a company event and things like that?
Yep. Well, you don't even have to rent it. I don't think. You just ask for it, right?
Yeah.
Can I reserve the box? I don't think they charge you for that.
And
if they did, they shouldn't.
And then you just pay for the food and the booze. And
the food's so much per person, I think.
Yeah.
The flat rate. So I think it's, whatever it is, $1,700 or something for 25 people or something.
So I've got a couple of things here before we close. But tell me one of the most bizarre stories. Like, I mean, even with Chris, with all the boys, you're known for telling a story. Like, sit at your kitchen table, have a drink, and all of a sudden these stories come out of your mouth, and we're like, holy. So we're like, Chris, is it like, and I gotta admit, like growing up, right, like, with Chris, I had no idea the industry you were in. Like, he's a driver, and then when you go to Mohawk, it's like, you see your name in the Hall of Fame, and I said, "Oh, do you know Bill O'Donnell?" And they're like, "Billy O." Like, you've got the Magic Man moniker. So, like, give me a story. Like, give me one of the most bizarre stories.
Well, I'll tell you one time, but this always sticks in my mind.
Yeah.
I get hurt. There's a guy at the Meadowlands, and he used to harass me all the time. Big guy, probably your size, big guy. So they had what they call Talk to the Stars, and you go up to, they do a thing like this, and there'd be a whole bunch of people there, and they'd ask you questions. This guy was really aggressive, right? I mean, I'm saying to the guard, get me out of here, right? This guy's going to kill me.
Yeah.
So I get in an accident right in the first turn at the Meadowlands. I'm laying on the track. Who jumps over the fence but him? And he's over there, and he's I mean, I think he's going to kill me. This guy finally he's getting a chance to kill me. So anyway, he says, "You okay? You okay?" And I go, yeah. So he takes my helmet off and stuff. So the ambulance comes, and they put me in the ambulance and stuff, and they have to take you off the track to the grandstand and put you in an ambulance that can leave the grounds. So he comes in the ambulance with me. So he gets in, and he said to the ambulance driver, "Can I go to the hospital with him?" And they go, "Yeah, if you like." So he stayed in there with me. He said, "What, do you want to kill me yourself?" He goes, "Exactly." He said, so it was the wildest thing you ever saw. But they would, and he was a guy that they used to call me Magic. So he said one time, I'm going on the track, he says to me, "I know why they call you the Magic Man." I go, "Yeah, why is that?" He said, "Every time I bet on you in the trifecta, you disappear," he said. So,
well, it's funny. I was going to ask you about that. Like, where did that come from?
From a guy that used to write for the Sports Eye. His name was Clyde Hurt.
Out of where?
New York.
New York.
Yeah. So when I first went down there, I guess I was driving horses that were winning, that were paying $30 or $40, and they just thought we're going beyond what they ever did before, maybe. Yeah. So they just thought it was something magical, I guess. I don't know. The magical was I weighed 138 pounds.
Yeah.
And the guy driving before weighed 200. That was the magic of it all, right?
Yeah. So then the Hall of Fame. So when did you get inducted into the Hall of Fame?
Here in Canada, 1988, maybe, I think it was.
Okay. So you started racing in the mid-'70s?
Early 70s.
Early 70s. Yeah. And then, so 20 years later, you were in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
And then what about in the U.S.?
91. And then I don't know, I mean, the Canadian one and the American one. Canadian one first and the American one. And then in between there, or maybe after there, the Sports Hall of Fame, which is a big deal, a real big deal in Canada. And it's all sports, right?
Yeah.
And I was inducted there, and I don't know how. I always said, I'm a token, I guess. I'm from the Maritimes. They didn't have anybody in there from the Maritimes.
Yeah.
But there's only me, Hervé Filion, Keith Waples, and there's somebody else just got inducted lately in the Sports Hall. Oh, John Campbell. But John was late. I don't know, how could you do that? I mean, he's won more money than anybody in the business. He won $300 and some million.
Yeah.
And he just went in maybe 6-7 years ago.
Wow.
I don't know how they missed him, but I didn't realize it was that big because it wasn't around when I was, a kid in Canada, and I lived in the States, and they inducted me in the Sports Hall of Fame. So Doug Brown called me and says, "How come you didn't come up here for the induction? Like they have a preliminary thing, like an announcement." I go, "Is it that big a deal?" He said, "Really big deal." He said, "Don't miss this." So I went. So who was I sitting beside? Henry Richard.
Wow.
In the same time, he got done.
And so, like, how? Like, I mean, that's, you must be pretty proud of that stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
but
I mean,
it's different. And I went to, they moved back home here now to Toronto, but it was in Toronto, but we were down to CNE, and it just was a wall.
Yeah.
So they wanted $30 million. They were going to put up 10, the Hall of Fame, the province 10, and the city of Toronto. That's what they were looking for.
Yeah.
Well, they wouldn't go for it. Whoever was, I forget which one wouldn't. But anyways, the mayor of Calgary, I think he's gone now, but he was a big sports fan, this guy, right? And he says, come on out here, we'll get you the money. So they went out there, and where they train the Olympics, that's where it's at now, the Hall of Fame. And they're moving it back here to Toronto now. But I went out there, so you go in and you give a donation. So I just gave a donation, like $50 or something I put in the thing, and I signed my name. So I'm going around, this girl comes in and goes, come here. Are you Bill O'Donnell, the guy that's in? She goes, well, take that money back. I said, no, I mean, you need it. I mean, this is what you do here. No, we refused it. We cannot take money from people that are in there.
Really?
Yeah. I said, those are the guys you need. Right?
So when did your dad pass away?
2006.
So he was around with the Hall of Fame, and
yeah.
like, what was his thoughts on that?
Oh,
like,
he loved it.
He
loved
bizarre,
it.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
he loved it. Yeah, like when not the Canadian one he didn't come to, but the American one he did. He come down. It was in the summer. It's always July 1st there anyway, so they come down and spent a couple of weeks there and stuff, right? So,
wow.
but he enjoyed being around. See, he trained in Florida too. Like, when he worked for Captain Crookshanks and Sackle Downs, he trained there, and he became friends with Louis Williams,
okay,
who was just a young black kid.
Yeah.
That used to come down to my dad's, sit on the trunk and smoke dope, my dad said. And he says, what do you want to come down here for? He said, well, the wind blows that way. He said, they can smell it up in my
yeah.
So anyway, it was funny, his dad telling the story, and he says, he come home from Florida, and the horses were racing. They raced real good. And I said, who's this kid here, Dad? Who's this guy, L. Williams? He goes, he's a little black kid from Ohio.
Yeah.
He said, his grandfather sent him down there. He had 2 horses. So he said, he used to come down, sit in my trunk, bullshit with me, and smoke his dope, and just a nice young guy. And he said, and in the paddock one time, I saw him in there coming off the racetrack, and I said, Louis, do you drive? And he goes, yeah. Well, why didn't you tell me that? I said, well, he's kind of shy, Louis was anyway. Yeah. So he says, well, can I put you down to drive my horse? And he goes, yeah. Well, this one horse, won like 4 races in a row with him. And he's in the Hall of Fame now, Louis, too. So
really?
So they were friends, so I never knew any of that, that they were that close. So I'm at the Meadowlands, and one night I'm sitting there, he goes, are you Henny O'Donnell's son? I said, yeah. And he told me the same story. So he said,
Henny?
Henry O'Donnell.
Oh, yeah, Henry, yeah.
So he said, does he ever come down? I said, yeah, they're coming next week. He said, well, bring him over to the barn. So he got there, and I said, Dad, Louis wants to see you. He goes, oh, yeah. But he would never say either. What those old guys are like. So I took him over, and pretty soon, 20 minutes later, they're on the track going together, like training the horses together. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was funny. Yeah, that was good.
And do you, other than your sister down there, do you have any connection back into the East Coast?
2 sisters.
2 sisters down there? Yeah. You don't have a place down there or anything like that,
no.
Right? Not with all the purse money that you won?
No. My kids got it all. Raising them.
Except for Chris.
Yeah, Chris didn't. Well, he played soccer. He was cheap.
Okay, I guess final thoughts on the industry. It's taken you places where you probably never really imagined.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And look at this. You're here with me.
Yeah.
But you start off in Nova Scotia, and then you go to New Hampshire, and then you're in New York, and then you're back in Ontario. Yeah. It's been pretty good to you, this industry, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What's your final thoughts on that?
Well,
any regrets?
No, I don't think I do. I can't. Yeah, buying bad horses, I regret doing that. But anyway, that was just part of life. No, I'm good. I'm good. I don't know what else I would be doing if I. Sometimes I would think, I should have became an electrician, but I know myself. I'd electrocuted myself. I'm very unhandy with anything. And I can drive horses. That's all I can do. Yeah. And people would say, you can't do that. I said, no, you can't drive a bad gator trotter here, but I can.
Yeah.
So that's I do have somewhat of a talent, And no, none. Not regrets I don't have, but I'm really concerned about where the industry's going.
Yeah.
Especially here in Canada. Kentucky's really healthy, very healthy. Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York. But here we are, like we started it all, with having the casinos here, other than Delaware, I think was before us. But this is where it all started, and here we are. We went from the penthouse to the shithouse, basically, really, and it's a shame.
Like you really see this, like throughout this whole story.
Yeah.
Like you see it, like your dad, it's more of a passion for him because you couldn't make a living.
Yeah.
And then you were like exceeding that.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden,
it's way back down.
It's way back down.
Yeah. Yeah. And you get a lot of hobby guys now that are here. I mean, people that when we lost the slots and they closed the barn area, I can name you a half a dozen guys that were training 25 horses that have 4 now.
Yeah. Was there any ever what are we for time?
Hour 35.
Okay, cool. Were there any other guys that would people steal horses, or would they
from one another?
Would they
steal owners? Yeah, with bring their horses to them, but every horse they have a chip in them now, right? In the neck.
Now they do.
Yeah.
But what about back in the day? Like you had 2 horses that look alike, or would you sell a horse that wasn't
I've had that one time. Yeah, a guy. It was in New Jersey. I was here in Canada. I saw this horse race, so I called the trainer and said, "Would you sell that horse?" And he goes, "Yeah. What do you want for him?" 55,000. He said 50 for the horse, 5 for the owner, 5 for me, which is fair. He's going to make.
That's how they used to do it.
Yeah, he did. This guy.
Do you have horse? Is there a horse salesman like that out there?
Oh, agents. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. They get 5% or 10%. So anyway, I called my vet, a guy that I knew down there, and I said, "Jim, could you go down to so and so's barn and look at a horse for me?" He goes, "Yeah. What's the horse's name?" So I told him. He says, "Yeah, okay." So he called me back about 15 minutes later. He says, "Could you give me his tattoo number?" Yeah, sure. So I did. He called me back, said they showed me the wrong horse. I said, that's awful. That's terrible. But anyway,
and that happens.
Well, it happened to me. I know. Yeah.
But you obviously didn't buy it, right?
No.
But you must see some funny stuff in the industry, eh?
Well, they sell people. It's just the way it is. It used to be and I think this is in life in general, that they used to sell people, like that coffee's worth $1.50. But now people try to get $3 for it or $4 for it.
Yeah.
It's worth $1.50, but it's not what things are worth. It's what you can get for it. It's unbelievable. Like with cars, I know a guy that was with General Motors years. I said, "Do you have a markup, what it costs you?" And he goes, "Yeah. Whatever the traffic will bear."
Yes.
So that's life kind of in general too, right?
Yeah.
And I've had that happen to me, and you go, "Are you kidding me?" And then you take it someplace else, and it's going to cost you 10% of that, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's been going on for years, but I think there's more of it now than there used to be, right?
And would you with the boys, you never had the boys really jump into the industry, right?
Sean did with the jumping horses. Yeah, he was pretty good at it too.
Would you encourage that with your kids, or? Did you ever encourage getting into the industry with Chris or Sean or Megan?
No. Well, Chris, he never, we never lived like we did here, 15 minutes from the track. In New Jersey, I lived 20 miles away.
Yeah.
And there was no horses where I was, where we lived north of the racetrack. And they just never were around the horse. They come to races once in a while, but they never were really hands-on to it.
Yeah, so it wasn't like your dad, you'd go out and help the farm or anything like that. It was just a totally different atmosphere.
So Sean did. When we moved up here and I was stable here, right here in Rockwood, he used to, in the summer, he came with me every day, and he got likened to jog horses and trained them a little bit. And he was only about, he'd be 12 or 13 or something like that. And he had really good set of hands, and he's very calm around a horse. So he got likened that a little bit too much, so I bought him a pony. Got him into the pony stuff and with the pony club. And then after that, he grew up and he got a little bigger horse. And then I bought him a thoroughbred horse that he started showing and did really well. We went to Florida one winter, took that horse down there. And the difference between Florida or the United States and here was they have a group of kids that are 14 to 18 that compete against one another. Well, up here they don't have enough kids. He was competing with Ian Miller, or Ian Miller's kids.
Yeah.
And it was kind of disheartening for him a little bit. When we went down there, that horse was no better there than he was here, but he was champion and reserve champion in Wellington, which is the Meadowlands of
That's the
jumping.
big, yeah.
Big.
That's in Florida, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the winter we were down there. So anyway, he was riding with Sue Pritchard up the road here, and she had him, riding horses, and I thought he was pretty good at it, really.
Do you find that part of the industry, like the jumpers and the trotters, do you find that or dressage, sorry, do you find that that's increasing in popularity? Or do you find...
I don't know.
Because I know, like even here, right? Yeah, Stone on Wellington Road 50, and they do a heck of a show. Like, I mean, if you ever been there,
Yeah, it was there last. I had never was. Years ago.
yeah,
They had a show, but not like that.
No.
Sean was doing it, but I went last year. I took a horse over there for Kathy's son, or Brandon. He does, he does shipping, right? So I said I'll pick him up. So I picked the horse up, took him over, and I'm going in there, going, what the hell? It's like a city,
yeah,
a real city, and it was before the meet it started. But
Yeah.
there's barns, temporary barns all over the place. It's wild.
yeah. Like they I mean, they do a hell of a show there,
Yeah.
and I like because I always I remember talking to an old realtor one time, and he said sometimes I think in Wellington County there's more horses than people,
There
know.
is.
And there's a lot, but there's a few different industries, right? And I was just curious because it with anything with a horse,
Yeah,
the biggest thing across all lines it costs you money,
yeah,
right? Whether you're boarding or feeding
Yeah.
the damn animals,
Yeah.
right?
yeah. Feed itself is so expensive now. When we lost our slots, we did a lot of research. In Wellington County, there was 28,000 horses. In
Yeah.
Wellington County. So all breeds, not just standardbred, thoroughbred,
Yeah.
you name it. But there was 28,000 horses.
Holy,
That's a lot of horses.
it's interesting you have all that data too.
Yeah.
So I guess on our final thoughts here, Bill, what do you think was the biggest contributor to your success in the industry?
Dedication.
Was it?
I always said, you hear a lot of guys complain about staying too late and stuff. I go, you tell me what time to be there,
Yeah.
I'll stay all night. That's my job. Stay in. I don't know how many times, trainers will come to you after like the 8th race, say, so-and-so took himself off of my horse in the 12th race. Will you drive him? Yep. I get a good story about a guy that it was his wife. It wasn't him. That I drove a horse from one time at the Meadowlands, and she was in the paddock. He was racing it someplace else. So she told me how to drive the horse. So I do what I can do, right?
Yeah.
You can't do what you want to do sometimes out there. You got to do it. So anyway, I didn't suit her very good, I guess. So she comes back down the paddock, and she says, "Why didn't you just keep going?" I go, "Because the guy that let me go parked me till I was tired and wanted to come back to front." So anyway, I did. He finished 5th and 4th and whatever we finished. So then I just kind of laughed at her, and I put my helmet on top of the Coke machine. I walked away, and she goes, "Where are you going?" "Where am I going? Do you think you're talking to your husband?" I said, "As a matter of fact, lady, don't talk to me for a year, and don't ever put me down to drive another horse."
And that's it.
That was it. So anyway, and he knew, and she must have told him. So he never did, and it was fine. We both survived.
Yeah.
So about and that story got around, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I heard a story about him and her. They were at Yonkers, and he gave her money to bet, and she didn't like his numbers, so she bet different numbers. Well, the numbers he gave her, he would have made $3,500, and she had losing tickets, and he slapped her
Yeah.
in the parking lot. So I heard that story. So anyway, we're at the Meadowlands one night, and there's 3 or 4 of us sitting there, and it was a dirty, muddy, rotten night. And so this guy comes up, and he's looking for a driver, and said, "Oh, he left. He took himself off? Yeah, he's gone." "Oh my God," he said, "I need a driver." So I said, "No, I'll drive your horse if you want." He goes, "You will?" "Yeah." "You sure?" Yeah, no problem." So he left. So a friend of mine says, "I thought you didn't like that guy." I said, "I didn't till I found out he slapped her." I know that's not very nice to say.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. I love that. Well, that's good. Well, listen, this was awesome.
So I'd edit that one.
Yeah, we're gonna edit that one. That's gonna be the best line.
Yeah.
That's gonna be the best
You
line.
can say if you want. It don't matter. But that's times are changed a lot anyway, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, this has been awesome.
Okay.